Cool.
Chris, or Lori, rather.
Hey, well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is Lori Stratton. I'm a board member with the Michigan Music Alliance. I'm proud to present our B-side session tonight with Chris Simpson called Building an Authentic Brand. I'd like to introduce Chris before we get started. But a little bit about the Michigan Music Alliance. Our mission is to offer accessible professional development resources to the Michigan music community, and this is one way we do that. So we provide a lot of information about how to start an LLC, from branding to EPKs to a whole bunch of different things we've featured in the past. And our goal is to continue providing programming where people can benefit from educational resources and to learn more about what we do at different parts of the state. And to kick things off for tonight, I'd like to introduce Chris Simpson. So, Chris Simpson is a music and music business professional based in Detroit. He specializes in music marketing, music entrepreneurship, and music performance. Chris graduated from Wayne State University with a bachelor's of music, along with a focus on music business. During his time at Wayne State, Chris had previously held internships with Live Nation, the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, Axis Music Academy, Be Now Media, the Detroit Sound Conservancy, and Warner Music Group. Chris also participated in the Motown Music Accelerator program as an artist manager, and he was also one of the co-founders of the Wayne State University student-run record label Old Main Records. Today, Chris currently spearheads he's a business development manager for Gen Admission, which focusing on education and partnerships to provide music business resources to the next generation of music business professionals. Chris also holds the role of patron engagement manager at the Flint Institute of Music, and he's the co-founder of Say Hey Sounds, a music studio and music sing company. And from there, I'd like to turn over to Chris to talk about building an authentic brand. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, everybody that's in the chat, say what's up and where you're from. I think we're all from Michigan, right? I think of it. Thank you for the introduction, Lori, and for the Michigan Music Alliance for putting this on. I think this is an incredible resource that is really unique to our state. So yeah, I'm excited to present a B-side session, Building an Authentic Brand. So yeah, I'm excited to get started here. So I will move forward here with our presentation. So I think Lori gave an amazing intro to my bio here, but I guess I'm gonna just share my inspiration for doing this. Like Lori said, I do nonprofit work with a organization called Gen Admission, and what we do is basically provide resources for those that are either artists or looking to go into the music business. So whether you're an artist or you're aspiring music business professional, we provide resources and programming for global and nationally. So I'm excited to kind of bring this home to our state of Michigan for this presentation. So kind of starting off with asking the question and even just the title of this B-side session, what is authentic brand building? And feel free to participate in the chat and ask questions for if you have any, and Lori will kind of moderate those questions. So starting with kind of my start in the music business to being a musician myself, but also working on the business side, authenticity was extremely important to me, not only marketing my music, but learning how to market other people. And I think kind of like the streamline example that I want to give is you want to be able to market authentically, right? So asking the question, what is authentic brand building? I think that's it's a couple of different things, but I think looking at this diagram here, you can kind of see it's combining what is you and what is your fans, right? And meeting in the middle with that, right? So your passions, your music, the reason you're creating it, the things that you truly love, and then the things that your audience, your fans are engaging to. So what do you want to kind of do and tie in this diagram is sort of build that relationship with your fans, right? Talking genuinely, relationship building with your target audience, and kind of having that consistent marketing or overarching message. So kind of some examples of authentic brand building that I think are kind of helpful to start is, every house needs a foundation, right? So if there's no foundation in the house falls over. If wind blows by, a storm blows by. You want to build your brand as a foundation, and kind of giving some examples of authentic brand building. I think it's a couple of these bullet points here. It's community building. It's having a relationship with your audience, right? That's kind of like a digital dialogue. The storytelling, right? Telling you about who you are as an artist, right? What music you are, uh, what are you trying to say with your music, right? What genre of music, right? What is unique to your story? Um, Going forward too with shared core values, right? At the core of what you believe in is going to kind of come off with your marketing and your brand. And then the rollout of that, right? The presentation. So kind of think about that consistent messaging, but also the color schemes that go with that, right? That make you unique and identifiable. So going forward here, and maybe some audience participation too. I think Lori will be able to see in the chat. But I've
Yeah, let
listed.
me. Oh, real quick, sorry to interrupt, Chris. One thing, it looks like our chat is disabled, so if you want to put questions in the Q&A, I can monitor them that way. So there you go.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no worries. Yeah, but I kind of wanted to open it up to people that are attending live as like a participatory, uh, being a participant in the workshop, right? Kind of, I'll ask some questions here, and you can answer them too, and provide feedback. Or if you have any specific questions, feel free to drop them in that Q&A chat. So, going into this presentation here, kind of giving some examples of authentic brand building by listing some artists here, right? Thinking about kind of that authentic brand building. So can anybody list the two artists that are here? Tried to give some popular artists. Maybe somebody can drop them in the chat, and feel free, Lori, to shout them out too.
We got Lizzo
He's
as
right
one.
on, right? Born in Michigan. Like, who's that second artist, right? Anybody? I gotta say, I would kind of answer this. It's Olivia Rodrigo, kind of a newer artist that's popped up the scene in the last couple of years, right? But what do these two artists have in common, right? They have a really authentic brand, both on kind of being held with core values, but also in their music and their rollout strategy, right? So if we're thinking about Lizzo, for example, right? Think about just the themes that are coming out with her writing and her songs, right? The message. Think about the song "Good as Hell," for example, or the song "Juice," right? These are all empowering lyrics and messaging in the song, right? And then dropping down to an artist, Olivia Rodrigo, right? She has this consistent marketing that I like to call Olivia Rodrigo Purple. It's in all of her marketing, right? It was in her sour release, it was in her vampire release. If you see this color purple, you're easily identifying her as an artist, right? By this specific color, right? So it's the empowering, it's the community building, right? And then it's kind of like that freedom and creativity that you're able to build with your authentic brand. Um, so kind of some examples of, you know, thinking, tearing apart, like what is the authentic brand building, right? It's thinking two separate entities here, right? Your passive branding and your active branding, right? And think about passive branding as things that you can see and maybe hear, right? To kind of give an example, right, of passive branding, think about ACDC, for example. ACDC is just the letters, right? But that's just something you see on a t-shirt and you know what that band is. You know the songs, you know the group. Any specific logos, you can think about maybe the Dancing Bears with the Grateful Dead, for example, or in the previous slide, Olivia Rodrigo's Purple, right, with her Sour release. So you can kind of see the connection of those colors too. So going to the right side here too, and then talking about the active branding is something that I kind of touched on is um, your more or less your core values, right? Kind of telling the story, and that's the thing that you have to actively engage with your audience. So who you are, what you do, right? Your who, what, when, where, and why. What do you stand for, right? That can be kind of going back and forth with your core values, right? And then what makes you special? What makes you stand out, right? What's unique to your story? What's maybe a unique selling point that you can give with your music when you're building your brand? So even asking the chat here, who's live in the audience, what are some examples of some artists that maybe you know, either Michigan or outside of Michigan, that have like a really authentic brand? Eminem. Nice. Yes. He's from Detroit, right? Everyone's kind of seen that 8 Mile movie, right? They know his story, right? But it also comes out in his songs too. So that's really good. Um, keep going through here. So maybe give you a little tease to my slide here, but kind of with this authentic passive branding, active branding, this is something that you can see, but you might know who the artist is, right? Just by the colors, right? So this red and white color scheme followed by looks like two people that are in a band, right? They're from Detroit. So somebody give a shout out of what that artist is. And so we say White Stripes, Jennifer and Jake, you are correct, right? So actually thinking kind of moving forward here, right, with the White Stripes, they're were pretty consistent when they were alive as a band with these colors, right? Red and white. You think about the Elephant release, right? But also how they came out on stage. They always dressed in red, white, and black. So you can kind of see that that is passive branding, right? Kind of like being able to identify by the colors, right? Even think about red and white. Um, is not limited to this band, but think about Third Man Records in Detroit, right? As an example, Third Man is the color yellow, right? The color blue now is Jack White. So red and white is the White Stripes, yellow is Third Man Records, and blue is Jack White. So you can kind of see it that he's built kind of like three brands under his umbrella. And that's kind of important to find when you're bringing it back to if you're an artist or you're trying to market an artist, right? What are those brands? What does that rollout strategy look like? And sort of building that over time. You can be as consistent as Jack White and Meg White, or you can change that over time, right? But in your marketing, it could kind of be helpful to have the same colors throughout. And even kind of this presentation, even with the Michigan Music Alliance, we all have kind of specific colors that we're kind of rolling out here in our strategy. Cool. So I kind of want to open up. Does anybody have any questions so far? If so, feel free to drop them in the chat. I might not be able to check the chat, but Lori can get your questions in too. And I know that we're going Facebook Live here too, so that's great. So bringing it back, authentic brand building, right? You're building your foundation, right? You kind of know what you stand for, right? You know your story. Now you're just creating content that outlines those core values, that beliefs, that music. So I took this from a really great presentation and a really great musician in the area who some of you may know, Olivia Van Gore. And Olivia Van Gore kind of created this presentation with the Michigan Jazz Festival about creating content. But I think these are four great words to just break it down very simply to be able to kind of create content. So those four words are define, gather, build, and share. So think about defining your brand. That could be the genre of music. That could be the overall aesthetic, your personality, right? I even just think like asking the five W's, right? Who, what, when, where, and why, right? And being able to kind of outline in that in your stories so you kind of know how to market to your fans, right? They're wanting to hear that story. They're wanting to engage with you. Gather, right? Once you know those colors, you know the aesthetic, right? The genre of music, right? That's when you start wanting to build your content, right? Gather together pictures, videos, your bio, for example. Lori might be familiar with this EPK, your electronic press kit together. And then you can build that, right? And across all streaming platforms, right? You can schedule this content so it doesn't have to be all at once, right? But kind of have that consistent branding with a rollout release. And maybe you know an artist that like has a specific color or they did specific amount of images with that. Or even looking at the previous slide as, as an example with the white stripes, right? That red and white, very consistent marketing, right? Even you can even go deeper with that, right? To make sure that you have all of the correct social handles, right? So for example, like I am Chris Simpson MI on all socials, right? So every time I'm in public, I just say Chris Simpson MI, and that's like super easy. And I say as in Michigan, um, and then kind of building from that, right? You can use your content on socials, but you could also build your website with that. It's obviously marketing your brand. Lastly, is just sharing that content, right? Sharing the content to your fans in the kind of form of rollouts, right? A single release, having a show, right? Doing some fan engagement opportunities. There's some great things that can come from creating content and building that.
Chris, we had one comment from Jake that said marketing that doesn't feel like marketing, but it's relatable. I think that might be a point that he wanted to add.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I would agree with that. It's kind of coming from being able to market your fans, right? So they're being able to relate to your story or they're interested in your story, and you're just kind of creating the dialogue with it. Yeah. So here's an example of I want to say like maybe this is like a wheel of content that you can kind of provide with your release, starting with assuming that you've recorded the music, right? Mixed, mastered it, and it's ready to go. You can sort of tell stories and launch specific campaigns with that, right? So, for example, building that pre-launch of your music, right? The rollout strategy with that, creating merch, right? And engaging with your fans, right? The promos for if you're selling physical merchandise or if you're going on tour are all very helpful. And in this example, you can kind of see that it doesn't have to start with just putting out the song, but you can kind of continue that story along by pushing these different types of campaigns. Sweet. So I always like to say we're building brick by brick in this presentation and this workshop here. So the next sort of like with identifying your brand is getting the research behind that, right? Your data and research, and the data and research can help you track and market your fans, right? Whether they're existing or they're a new fan, right? So think about kind of the micro versus macro. And I had to take a couple economics courses, in college, and kind of just talking simply here is a simple definition. Micro is the kind of the little details, right? Zooming in. And macro is your bigger picture, right? And what I kind of mean by micro and macro, like think about macro being your basic demographics, like age, sex, gender, general geographic location, right? And then zooming into that, right? Okay, that's kind of to talk a little bit abroad. That means this maybe you can go a little bit more deeper into that, right? The micro, zooming in, the characteristics of those fans, inside and outside of music. What do they like to do? Maybe it's something that is a genuine thing that you love that you're able to connect with them on. And that's kind of just a way to survey your audience by mapping out a plan of how to market them. So kind of, I always like to say it's nice to be able to collect that data, and I'll give some examples of how to collect that by kind of creating a bird's eye view of that, right? Your goals and what you're marketing and where you want to go with it. Cool. So this can kind of go if you're an artist or you're marketing somebody that is an artist, surveying your audience. And as a digital marketer that has worked for record labels or nonprofits, orchestras, it's kind of all a little bit of all the same. But kind of asking these questions, right? Who are the artist fans, right? You know, the characteristics of these fans, right? What they like, artists they like, that sort of thing. Where do the artist fans live, right? That kind of ties back into your demographics. Asking the question, how do I convert my current fans into super fans? And then for those that don't know what super fans is, right? Think about your current fan maybe just streams the song, right? But maybe the super fan is more invested than just that, right? So taking those casual listeners that go, oh, that's a cool song, I'll add it to my playlist, to being like, no, I'll follow them on social media. I'll go to a show, right? Maybe highlighting some things future in this presentation that I'll outline. What is the data telling me, right? Are all of my fans living in a certain area, right? Maybe that's a good way to market an ad on social media, right? Or a place to go on tour where you know you have a lot of listeners. Asking yourself too, what is happening culturally? Are there any trends that you can maybe participate with your marketing or your music to kind of engage with a newer audience that you might not have known of, right? Your current existing audience versus your new audience. And then from that, asking those questions, it's like I got the collection of the data. What is my marketing opportunity, right? What is the story I'm going to try and tell? What are my goals with that? And then what is my content and release strategy from building your authentic brand? And then anybody who's live in the Zoom, feel free to ask questions too. I'll make sure to check the chat as well. So some music data platforms that you can check out that are free and kind of open. You know, if you have a Spotify account, there's Spotify for Artists where you're able to track that demographics like age, sex, gender, location, right? Track where your listeners are, right? I always like think that you should be taking not only where your streaming numbers are coming from, but also where your social media numbers are coming from too, right? So Facebook and Instagram have Meta, right? They have their own analytics software. TikTok even has one. It's called Pentos. And then a platform that I really love is called Chartmetric. And essentially, what Chartmetric does is it puts all the social numbers and the streaming numbers all in one place for you. So kind of maybe a hint or a tip or a trick if you're like looking to be like, oh, I don't know where my fans are, I don't know where current listeners are, to like create an account and start looking at those numbers that kind of help you narrow down your market, but also authentically market towards those fans. Cool. So kind of moving forward here, building your authentic brand, having the data and the research to go behind where to market those fans, right? Existing or new. Um, and then creating the rollout strategy that I like to call the marketing plan, right? So uh, outlining those pillars and foundations, right? I always say like the research is going to build your foundation of where to go, right? Sometimes you have to release music to know who those people are, so you can build from those, but you can learn from release to release, whether you're doing a single or you're doing an album, to kind of create a foundation to be better over time, to authentically market to those fans, to become more invested and more engaged. So like asking yourselves, like, what are the verticals, right, that are going to give me these pillars for that foundation, right? And I kind of like to just ask the question too when you're releasing music is, what is the story, right? Who are you? Like, what makes you special? Tell me about the music, right? Also, what's the goal of the project, right? What are you hoping to get with it? Outline some goals for yourself. And there's a really great way when you're releasing music to kind of have that consistent dialogue where you're not just releasing the song and then you're gone, but to be able to have your fans engaged and to have a digital dialogue with that, right? So thinking about reasons to keep your fans engaged and invested in the process. A great strategy that I learned is it's a simple thing, but kind of it's just three words: tease, launch, and amplify. Right. So think about the tease, maybe leaking the song, right? Maybe just leaking the album cover. You see a lot of artists do that. Where they're not necessarily giving you the full song and the full mix and saying, here you go, but they're actually saying, hey, I'm releasing something. You should pay attention, right? Hear my story. Kind of consistent marketing to be able to market your song. Launching the song, right? Putting it out on streaming platforms for everybody, and then amplifying that release, right? So thinking about those pillars is your story, right? Your marketing, the content, the social media content that comes with that, actively engaging with your fans throughout that process. Maybe there's a contest that they can be a part of. Maybe there's a way for them to see the show, right? See the new album in a live setting. And then you kind of your plugs and activations as well, right? Behind that, right? So you're not just putting out the song, but you have content and marketing to go along with that. Think about your plugs and activations. That could be press, that could be radio. Plugs and activations could also be brand partnerships or sync licensing. So this is a way to sort of stretch your release out, right? That's not just necessarily just uploading it to the streaming platform and waiting for a bite, but to be able to kind of get your fans engaged and have them follow along the journey as well. So kind of keeping that idea in mind of investment and engagement. Uh, there's a great author who wrote a nice book. His name is Ari Herstand, and he wrote a book called How to Make It in the New Music Business. And essentially, what you're looking at here is what he calls an investment ladder of investment engagement, but also kind of like the monetary side. So it's taking your casual fan, your casual listener, on to the next step, both engaging and in the investment process. So you can kind of see there's some steps to this, right? Maybe they're following you on social media, for example, or they're liking a song on their playlist to kind of being taking the next step, right? Maybe they're following you more actively on social media. They're commenting, they're sharing with their friends, they're going to see a show. Um, Next steps can be more monetary, right? So think about buying merch, right? They're on your email list, right? That's something that you can take from the digital real estate of Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok and have that to your use that those are your fans, right? That you can directly market to, right? You can more have incentives behind this too, right? Maybe they get more information than what you post just online. Um, Even kind of going forward too, up that investment and engagement ladder. They could be a part of your fan club, right? Or a part of your street team, put flyers up for the show, right? And then what he puts at the top here is your VIP, right? Think about the most important person in your life. In this case, he put mom, right? Mom's his biggest supporter, right? My fiance, biggest supporter, tells everyone about everything, right? Both invested, you know, in telling the story, right? Sharing to others, because they're excited. So kind of want to take the casual steps of a casual listener to being kind of like your number one fan, right? So current fans versus super fans, right? So current fans could be more on the lower level, right? But your super fans are up top, right? They're giving the most energy, most of their time, and maybe even financial incentives behind doing that. So some examples of some fan supporting platforms that I think are really great are Patreon. Patreon is a platform where you can have a monthly tier. It's a service that allows you to upload content with a paywall. So it could be as little as $5 a month to maybe $100 a month. And with each of these tiers, right, you become with your investment, you become more involved and more engaged with your fan base. So there's a great platform for that to sort of think of like, how can I make money every month? To even like platforms like Even, where you're paying for the music first before you're uploading it to streaming platforms, right? Streaming tends to pay way less than paying for the physical merchandise or paying for the physical song. So that's think about that as a way to kind of get more money up front, right? And that can fund your release, right? That can fund your next album, fund your next opportunity. But also you're kind of more engaged with your fans, right? So you're having conversations with them, you're going on live streams. Maybe there's a private Twitch stream that you're on every month with them, and you're just kind of sharing that community. They want to be a part of your tribe, right? Either wearing like the shirt out there, or even just thinking about our Detroit Lions team with the Honolulu Blue, right? They kind of want to be a part of that momentum, sharing those wins with you. We're kind of tribal in nature, and they kind of want to be a part of your pack. So, and then kind of more conversational, there's another great platform called Discord, where you can have sub channels and have your fans not only interact with you, but also interact with each other. So I think that's a really great platform to highlight as well. So kind of the reason why I had mentioned Even, it's a platform that's relatively new, but this is something that you can do with your fans as well, right? Is uploading the music first for people to buy it before it goes to streaming, right? So you can kind of see on the presentation here, the difference between a release that would be paying for the music up front versus streaming it, right? And obviously the streaming is going to be much less. But if those fans are engaged and they're wanting to support you, you can make some real money off of not necessarily, this is only 200 fans versus 285,000 fans, right? So kind of segmenting your audience right to that investment and engagement. So wanted to bring together a Michigan example as well. And feel free to, in the comments section, keeping people that are live engaged to, feel free to list an artist that you know does a really good job with fan engagement or has like a solid brand. I'd be curious to know what everyone else is listening to, what everyone else is seeing online as well. So that case study kind of giving an example of a Michigan band that does a really great job with this is called The Accidentals. They were based at, I think, yeah, were based in Traverse City, right? So they're a Michigan born and raised band, but they have a really great Patreon tour. Um, and they kind of have fun with it, right? One is called Goats and Cheese, Tigers and Arrows, but you can kind of see as it goes on with the investment, you get more out of it. And ultimately, the fans are wanting to be closer with that too. And then Jake had mentioned in the chat as well, Logic, yes, really great uh, artist. And then Russ, who actually wrote a really good book about this too. Now, those are really great examples, guys. So building forth, kind of recapping my presentation here, you kind of want to have your brand identity checklist, right? Something to write down in this process as well, right? Your truth, right? What is your story, right? And being able to share your truth. So somebody had mentioned previously in the comment section, Eminem, right? Him sharing his truth, his life growing up, his upbringing. Thinking about specific brand staples, right? That you can maybe be a part of, right? Maybe you identify with some brands, right? Something that we did at Warner Music Group when we asked the artists is we asked them what was in their bag, right? Like, what kind of video games are you into? What kind of, food are you into? And maybe there's some brand partnerships that can align with that to give you more of that visibility, right? Knowing your lane, right? Knowing your audience, right? Where those fans are, kind of asking those questions in the previous slide, fan surveying your audience, and then kind of recapping at the end of here, your uniqueness, what makes you stand out, what's your story, what makes somebody want to fall in love with you at first sight, right? Maybe there's something unique that you're doing that not else people are doing. You're thinking outside the box with your marketing and your rollout strategy, but you're ultimately telling your story, which is like the deep root of your brand, right? Um, so that kind of like brings like kind of the end of my presentation, but I just wanted to give something, and I think the Michigan Music Alliance gives a really great, um, it's a really great resource and community for this. It's kind of being able with your authentic brand is building your community, right? So kind of not thinking what I can get maybe out of somebody, but how I can sort of carry them along and support them, both myself or them, right? In any type of situation, right? So here's a really great exercise that you can do at home, which is sort of creating circles and connecting the dots to expand your network with that, right? So kind of thinking of like your friends, Maybe they know somebody in the business that you can connect with, right? Or there's a way to kind of funnel those relationships more linear, where you're kind of having an introduction, for an example, right? Showing up to a workshop like this, or showing up to industry lunch with the Michigan Music Alliance is something that I encourage, because that's going to help you along the way, whether you're building that community with your fans, but you're also community building that community with the people that can support your career. So cool. Wanted to just end this by saying thank you. I think we're going to do a Q&A, but I had listed my social media. If people would like to follow and engage with me, I'm happy to answer any questions. And then I also, if you're looking to have more of a self-guided process here, I also created a book too with my friend Alicia on kind of how to start your career, right? Building your authentic brand and writing it all down. So I'll share that link in the chat, but I think we'll transition into questions, right, for everyone's here. This is also a great opportunity to network too. So if you're an artist or you're a professional, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hi, Chris. I'm gonna say first, I just want to say thanks for joining us and providing this resource for us. I have a question, if that's okay,
Yeah.
about one of the things that you said was tease, launch, amplify, and I am at the like tease stage, and like I can like make reels and stuff like that, but you can't use the music in the reels until it's on the streaming services. So how do you suggest that we tease our music before it's released?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways that I can think about doing that. I would say it has to come before it's on streaming platforms. There's ways that you can upload that music, like for example on TikTok as a sound before you're uploading that to a streaming platform. Just making sure that that's connected to the royalties on the back end. So when that song is uploaded, that it's connected to the same source. But to your point, I think kind of releasing it a little bit on like those reels or those TikToks would be kind of the way to kind of tease the song, right? Because I think about a song that just kind of came out by Willow Avalon, and it's going rich and going broke, and she started just by in the studio, just kind of talking about it, singing the song, right? But then she created a little dance with it. So then people were dancing it, and then people were trying on their outfits with it, right? So it's a way to kind of stretch that release so that there's already fan engagement there. So when the song is already released, you kind of have more of that stretch, if that makes sense.
And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and we can share those with Chris. And Chris, thanks for sharing that link to your ebook too. We'll put that in the comments in our Facebook event too after we're done. So if folks miss it, we'll put it there too.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jake, feel free. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey. All right. First of all, thanks you guys for doing this. Really interesting stuff. I've been to a couple of things like this, and you guys have some really good. Chris, you have some really good information. But I wanted to go back to kind of the previous question I asked about marketing that doesn't feel like marketing. As I know, like if I see something and somebody's page or it just looks too polished and too perfect, and like everybody's following that same standard like roadmap or whatever.
Sure.
Any tips on like or thoughts on how that can be done without but being feeling like a real person? So like the audience can actually connect to you, be like, oh, this is a real guy. Like I feel like MF Doom had a big thing with his brand like that. So where it's like I really feel connected with that. and there was some marketing to it, but it wasn't like new Times Square billboard or something, like to where it's so obviously being pushed by money and things of that nature, and more or less just organic, and like this person is becoming or gaining an audience
Yeah.
purely off the fact of who they are, and people just like them. Like,
Yeah.
so anything that thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, I think you made a lot of great points, and something kind of want to reiterate too to you. I think you kind of maybe answered your question a little bit, versus like kind of it's the authenticity, right? People can smell when it's not authentic,
Hmm.
so it's being able to authentically market to your fans, right? So kind of that diagram in the first one, it's telling your story of what you stand for, what you love, and what your music is, right? And telling that through your marketing, right? Everyone also loves a really good underdog too.
Right.
Somebody that's new to the scene that's building their following. But to your point too, I think you also, if you're marketing your music or you're marketing somebody else, you also need to be building that community and supportive relationship online too with other people. So not just marketing when you have something to say, but being a conversation starter on those platforms, being a supporter in your local scene, going to local shows,
Mm,
sharing other people's content, not just your own. I think that would be
okay.
my best piece of advice of kind of how to authentically do it. But you're kind of
Yeah,
on the right
that's
with
that
saying
was a
that.
good yeah, your last little statement there, that like being around and reaching out to people, like going to events and whatnot. I feel like that kind of
Yeah.
really puts a nail in the coffin on that question there.
And
But I
people,
appreciate that.
yeah, you're welcome. People notice that too. And they want to support you as well. And it's a lot easier to, I guess, we say ask for a favor or ask for help when you're already supporting somebody that you've helped them, you know?
Right. Yeah. Like becoming almost like a
Yeah.
friend of theirs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Chris, we have a question that came in from Audrey Pearson in the chat. She's asked, can you give more examples of plugs and activations for a music release?
Yeah, plugs and activations. So I think I kind of touched briefly on like those plugs, but kind of to illustrate maybe where you could go with that. Radio, for example, your local radio station for I think everyone's here in the state that can listen to it. WDET, right? Has local music programming too. So it's finding those key connectors, listing that maybe out in a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet, reaching out to them, right, when you have music, right, or commenting on their thing, commenting on their articles too, and then finding out like the brands that you love too. I think when I was at more music group, it was always when we were starting out. Um, what are the hometown hero brands, right? That they identify with, um, and thinking about some maybe Michigan. Fago comes to mind. It's the first thing that comes to mind. As a Michigan brand, but maybe you really like Fago, right? And maybe finding the marketing person for that, right? It's a way to kind of just tell the story, right? Even like Lori, for example, who's an active journalist and writer too. She writes about she has a publication called the Stratton Set List, right, where she interviews it. Local Spins is also a really great publication for telling those stories too. So it's finding where those articles are, who are the stakeholders in that industry, right? And that's kind of a way to, I mean, you're putting the music out on your social platforms and your streaming platforms, right? But they're able to cast maybe a wider net to an audience that would also be interested in your music too. So it gives you more visibility, but it could also be a financial incentive too. Cool. Did that answer your question? I know you maybe put it in the chat. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
And we still had more time for questions. If anybody would like to put those in the Q&A or in the chat, we can share those with Chris. Or if you're on the Zoom here, you can just join and ask a question as well.
Another question, if I
Yeah,
if I may.
of course.
Uh, Tips on maybe finding the people in your area who are like what you're saying was like Fago, like in Michigan. Like I'm in Indiana, I'm in South Bend.
Okay.
Um, so like how to go about getting maybe in contact with people like that. I think showing up at events and things like that and kind of just talking and being friends and whatnot, but actually kind of I don't want to say weasel, but like kind of weaseling your way into like their mind, and so you can, it's a favor for a favor type of situation. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
what
Um,
would be the best course of action for that?
right. Um, the easiest way to find them, you could like one, LinkedIn is a really great resource for that of finding out who works in the company. And then oftentimes the company too will have like a standard email address. So it'll be like john.smith@fago, So like even if you're not able to find their specific email, you can type that in and see if it works. And if it bounces, then you try a different strategy. There's also a resource, I believe it's called Winmo, that can show you like the emails,
What was that called again?
Winmo, I believe.
Windmill?
Yeah.
Windmill?
Yep.
Okay.
Um, it's a really great resource too. They use that at Warner too. It's kind of like an email thing, but also creating that genuine relationship I think is
Right.
important. You said showing up at events, but how can you do that digitally too when there's maybe no events to, right? Maybe they're working on a certain product or a certain brand. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Keeping that relationship, giving a compliment, right? Giving that support, giving acknowledgement to their work is a lot more with like, oh, I've seen this person like comment on my stuff. Like I'm more down to have a conversation
Right.
or
Okay.
familiar
As a,
with.
as
Um,
opposed to like a
yeah, as opposed
just
to
like
like,
a sending a common email like, "Hey, I make music," you know.
yeah, and in the music industry too, even like on the brand partnership on the agency side too, a lot of people post their have like the bios on their Instagram as
Mm.
well. So you could technically like look up the company and then look them up by like first and last name and maybe find their profile or look in the comment section of those posts too because they're often supporting.
Almost do a
Right.
little bit of stalking
Yeah.
and finding out what these people are about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And same thing with like, key stakeholders in the music industry as well.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
We still have time for any other questions if anyone would like to ask Chris something. Well, I think that might be it for our Q&A session, Chris. So thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to share such valuable insights and tips with everybody here. So thanks again.
Of course. Thank you to the Michigan Music Alliance. If you'd love to plug any upcoming events, I saw industry lunches are coming up. I saw Music Econ Summit coming up. So I think you guys definitely got to sign up to the mailing list too as well. So kind
So
of give
yeah,
you
we have a lot of good events, and I appreciate you bringing those up. So there's
yeah.
going to be a music economics summit in Grand Rapids on April 27th, and then we're going to have our next, I believe, our next industry lunch will be April 12th. I think that's in Kalamazoo. I got to double check, but we're also over here in Metro Detroit. We'll be planning a networking event for Michigan Music Alliance. In probably looking at late April, early May. So that's in the planning stages. So keep your eyes out for that. And then we'll continue to build more B-side session programming as well online. So we have a lot of exciting stuff coming up this year. But again, Chris, thanks so much for joining us and sharing all of this information. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great way for anybody in this chat. This is that's like a perfect event to like go to because people are wanting to network. And Michigan Music Alliance is a great community and educational resource. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact us. We could always send those to Chris afterward. And somebody had a question about, I believe it's April 12th, Kalamazoo, but I need to double check. Thank you. Yes, apparently it is April 12th, Kalamazoo, according to Ed Bells, according to Nick, our director for Michigan Music Line. So if anyone's in that area and wants to join, feel free. That's a great way to network and to meet people from all different facets of Michigan's music community. So thanks again, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you, Chris.
You.
Have a good night, everybody.